Welcome to our preview of Week 11 in the Premier League. It's the World Sport Report video podcast looking ahead to the big matches that are coming up on Saturday and Sunday in the top flight of English football. Myself, Chris Rivers and Bobbie Jackson have picked out two games apiece that we're going to have a little bit of a look at in more detail. And Bobbie, you are first up. You've picked an intriguing game at the Etihad Stadium where Manchester City play host to a struggling Southampton side. Southampton, well, hoping that they don't get another hammering like they did last weekend.
Yeah, it's tough to make an argument anything other than a Manchester City win, isn't it? I don't think you're going to get much value in that. 33-1 actually for Southampton to win this game, which just shows how much unfancied they are going into the game. And of course, it's off the back of that 9-0 loss in the Premier League to Leicester just a week ago. They have played Manchester City in the Carabao Cup in midweek. They lost 3-1 in that one, and Manchester City much changed. They had a few of the kids in the side. Southampton made changes as well. Now we're back to the Premier League and we expect the two strongest 11s to be out there. You think back to last season and Southampton, okay, they didn't play too well over the course of the season, but I don't think they were as bad as they've been this season. And they lost 6-1 at the Etihad. Raheem Sterling scored twice on that day, and for me, he's a good bet to score 2 or more goals again in this one. You can get him at 3-1 to score 2 or more. He's got 7 in the Premier League so far this season, so that would be my standout bet for this game. I'd also be looking at maybe Manchester City win to 0. I don't think we're going to expect Southampton to come forward and attack too much. Dan, what we saw in the Carabao Cup was they were looking for damage limitation, to sit back, to defend and not lose too heavily. I don't think they were too concerned about getting forward. And when you consider City have beaten Watford 8-0 already this season at home, 3 of their last 4 at the Etihad in the Premier League have finished to 0 to City. They did lose one the other game 2-0 against Wolves. So I'd be looking at that one as well, and you can get that at 3-4 for Manchester City to win to 0.
Yeah, certainly it looks like there's plenty of value to be had outside of just backing City to win that game. And as you say, Ralph Hasenhüttl, a man under pressure, is now the favourite to get the sack, isn't he, in the next manager to go market in the Premier League. So all kinds of pressure on Southampton. Not going to get much joy this weekend, though, I wouldn't have thought, against City. Another man under pressure is one of the games I've been looking at is Unai Emery, the Arsenal boss. His side take on Wolves at home at 3 o'clock on Saturday at the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal coming into this game having been knocked out of the Carabao Cup in midweek. Fantastic game at Anfield for the neutral. Arsenal scoring 5 but still somehow bowing out as it finished 5-5 and Liverpool winning on penalties. They take on a Wolves side whose form has improved pretty impressively of late. They also went out of the League Cup, but that was their first defeat in 7 matches in the league. Things have really picked up for Nuno Espirito Santo's men. They probably should have had a few more points on the board. A couple of VAR decisions have gone against them, but they now go to Arsenal, where they probably should have won this fixture last season. It finished 1-1. A late Henrik Mkhitaryan goal rescuing a point for Arsenal. They then easily overcame the Gunners at Molineux in the reverse fixture, and therefore, especially with Nuno actually having a better head-to-head record against Emery, I fancy double chance for Wolves, which is a double chance in terms of Wolves and the draw, giving you those two options at 29-25. I certainly think with Arsenal's problems, it's worth looking at that. And in terms of another bet, which is a shorter price, both teams to score at 5-7. Arsenal cannot get out of their own way defensively. Wolves, Raúl Jiménez is starting to hit a bit of decent form, and so he will cause all kinds of problems, particularly from set pieces. But I think Wolves will go there with plenty of confidence this weekend.
Yeah, I don't see why not. They had a bit of a slow start to the season, didn't they? But they weren't losing games. They were drawing them, weren't they? They were sticking in them. They were getting those points sticking over. And let's not forget that Wolves last season were taking points off the top 6, the big 6 as it's known. They were the games they were really performing in. It was 1 or 2 of the low-ranked sides where you thought, oh, they've let the game slip by there and they've dropped points they should have really claimed. So I would go with you there. I fancy Wolves to take something from the game this weekend. I might even go as far as suggesting they could win it. I know you've gone the double chance, but I think that Arsenal are there for the taking with all the unrest that's going on behind the scenes as well. The whole Granit Xhaka situation, the Emery situation. Yeah, I think there's certainly something in that one. Yeah,
I would certainly agree with you, Bobbie, in terms of an away win. The Wolves' record is all I would say is very poor against Arsenal overall. But you've picked out another game at 3 o'clock on Saturday. There's a whole bumper load of fixtures at 3 o'clock on Saturday. but not one that maybe people would expect us to pick out.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be the game of the weekend, but you don't always necessarily have to be looking at the game of the weekend to find some bets, I suppose. Sometimes it is worth delving into the matches that might not have a great deal of goals in them, and I think that's the way this one's going to go. It's Sheffield United against Burnley. Another of the 3 p.m. kickoffs, as you say. It's a busy fixture list on Saturday afternoon. We're looking at the outright odds for this one, 63 to 50 for Sheffield United, 23 to 10 for the draw, and 27 to 10 for Burnley. Sheffield United, for me, have been the best newly promoted side this season. I think I've enjoyed watching them. They remind me a little bit of Stoke in ways that they're not going to be the most eye-catching side, but I just like the determination, the character, the grit that they have. And they do have a bit of ability about them as well. That the tactical approach from Chris Wilder has been different, impressive, and a breath of fresh air in the Premier League. So I've enjoyed watching them, and I fancy that they can take something from this game, but I'm not overly confident with that. So I've looked at other markets. One in particular is the under 1.5 goal market, as I said. I think it is going to be a tight game, but you can get that at 23 to 50. Their games this season so far have been tight, cagey affairs, Sheffield United, and actually the last 6 games have averaged a total goals per game of 1.17, so you'll be coming under that in the last 6 matches. If someone is to get on the score sheet, which from that bet we're probably only going to get one person, Lys Mousset would be my tip. He scored in his last 2 games. I think a bit of a signing that went under the radar over the summer. He hadn't really performed at Bournemouth. Sheffield United said, look, we'll give you a go. He didn't start the season. He had his injury issues. He's since come in. He scored 3 goals. He scored in the last 2, as I say. And you can get him at 12 to 5 to score any time, and I'd fancy him to get on the score sheet. Yeah,
it was a bit of a joke that they'd signed Lys Mousset and paid money for him, wasn't it? Because he'd done so poorly for Bournemouth. But he's worked hard, as have the rest of the Sheffield United team. And Burnley had a bit of a stinker against Chelsea last weekend. So I do find that a tough game to call, but I can see why you might lean towards a narrow Sheffield United win in that one. Moving on to our final game of this preview then, and it is Sunday's 4:30 kickoff. Everton against Tottenham. 2 sides who are performing below expectations right now, particularly Everton, who are at the wrong end of the table. They felt harshly done by last weekend by VAR as they were beaten away at Brighton. Marco Silva blaming the weather partially for the outcome in that game as well, whilst Tottenham went away to Liverpool, gave a decent account of themselves, but in the end were overcome by the Reds as they went down to a 2-1 defeat in a repeat of that Champions League final. But despite that loss, I fancy them to go back to Merseyside and actually get a result this week. Spurs, they're 13 to 8 to win away at Everton. They've won on 3 of their last 4 visits to Goodison Park, so it's been a happy hunting ground. They absolutely smashed Everton to pieces last season, winning 6-2 in this fixture around December time. And I think this is an Everton side whose confidence is very fragile at this moment in time. You speak to Everton fans, they say the atmosphere is pretty flat around Goodison Park and that they're just waiting for Marco Silva to get the bullet. The players seem to have lost a lot of confidence and a lot of faith in the Portuguese manager since the start of the season. One player who could do some damage is Christian Eriksen. He's got a fantastic record against Everton. He scored in the last 4 matches against them. He's not had his best season by any stretch of the imagination for Spurs, but he's 4-1 to score any time. And you do see a pattern of players often just continuing to score against the same clubs over and over again, and I fancy Eriksen to offer a bit of value in that particular market. Yeah, they seem to get into a groove, don't they? As you say, he's not had the best of campaigns, but we know he's got ability. If he gets a dead ball situation, even in open play outside the box, he tends to score long-range strikes. And I think Everton's midfield could struggle against Tottenham's. I've been a bit critical of Tottenham over the course of the season, said they've had 1 or 2 passengers, but you can make the same argument for Everton, and I just think that added bit of quality that Tottenham have in their ranks will see them through this one. You mentioned the atmosphere or lack of atmosphere at Goodison Park as well, and I think that can be really tough for players to play on their own patch. Maybe when Everton are away from home, they feel a bit like the pressure's off, we've not got all the fans on our back, but when they go to Goodison Park, they feel as though they're closed in. It's that tight stadium, isn't it, that can so often, or in the past, has worked in their favour when opponents come to play there, but when you're under the cosh, then the fans getting at you can be very troublesome. So, yeah, I think Tottenham hoping to try and break that duck on the road this weekend. Yeah, they might well do, mightn't they? 13-8 for a Spurs away win, a rare Spurs away win, but I think Everton might be the perfect place to do it. So that is your lot for this edition of our Premier League preview video podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all of our latest videos and follow us on social media.